say that was a dynastic run?
No.
Let's do some overreactions on this Monday with Dan Graziano. Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
If someone said, wow, Klint, Kubiak, and Fernando Mendoza together, they will lead the Raiders to the playoffs. Is that an overreaction?
Yes, this is a team that has a long way to go, and I think it's exciting to talk about a young foundation with not just those two guys, but guys like Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty. But they have a ways to go to build that roster back up, and they play in a division where two teams made the playoffs this year, and the other one is literally the Chiefs. So I think it's going to be a pretty tough uphill climb, especially in the early going for the Raiders.
But does starting with the quarterback make sense to D-Wood? Is that the right decision? They've hired the offensive guru. All signs point to taking the quarterback at number one.
They might not be ready per se, but this is absolutely the right move because you don't know when you'll be in this position to really get the quarterback at the top of the draft again.
Here's the thing, Neek, and we've talked so much this morning about quarterbacks and patience and reclamation projects and all those kinds of things. And I just hope, look, Fernando Mendoza, super high floor, computer-like processor in his head. I get all that stuff. He's as pro-ready as you can be. But even he is going to require patience because that is it is the worst team in the NFL for a reason. And I would be a little bit worried about just throwing him out there week one and saying, okay, we got that problem solved. Let's start working on other stuff later.
Yeah, I think he's going to require patience, but more than patience is he's going to require support. The best thing you can do for a young quarterback, honestly, the best thing you can do for any quarterback is take pressure off of them. If you can have the support of getting Ashton Genty and that run game going and a good offensive line to protect him and a great defense, which are all things that they don't have now, but if they could get those things, that'll be better for Mendoza's development. He'll turn into the quarterback that you want him to be if you can give him that time that he needs to develop by supporting him.
All right, maybe someday he'll turn into an MVP. That brings us to our next overreaction. Graz, if someone said with his new head coach and a new offensive coordinator next year, Lamar Jackson will win his third MVP. Is that an overreaction?
It's not. Anytime Lamar Jackson has been fully healthy throughout a season, he's been a candidate, if not the winner, of the MVP award. So, no, I don't think much changes for Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. They have some issues to sort out with his contract. They need to get that adjusted to get the cap hit down. But no, I think if Lamar Jackson has a healthy season, he's always going to be a candidate for MVP.
Nick, it's the first really major upheaval they've had during his tenure there. What is your sense of what it's going to look like around their MVP quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to the coaching or the coaching staff on the offense or their new head coach and Jesse Minter, but Lamar Jackson being an MVP or not MVP candidate is completely dependent on how many games he's healthy enough to play for. He's at that level of quarterback, so I think their concern is more about getting a pass rush without having the blitz on the defense than it is about how good Lamar Jackson is going to play under whatever offensive coordinator they have there, which now is Declan Doyle, right?
Declan Doyle, correct, is the offensive coordinator. After Todd Monken took he left, of course, after last year and is now in Cleveland. All right, the last one I want to get to, let's save some time for it. Dan Graziano, with all the upheaval in Philadelphia, if people were to say Nick Sirianni enters next season on a hot seat, is that an overreaction?
I don't think it's an overreaction. If the offense struggles again, right, with a new offensive coordinator again, then I think people will start to look to point the finger there. It sounds crazy. He won the Super Bowl 12 months ago, but it is Philadelphia, and there have been a lot of changes there on the coaching staff. So I don't think it's ridiculous to think that we would be having this conversation. If the Eagles had a bad season next year, I don't think it's ridiculous to think we'd be having this conversation.
They did make a change not too far removed from Doug Peterson winning a Super Bowl, right?
That is correct.
They're a decisive organization, and I mean that in a positive way.
Yes.
They make proactive decisions less than they make reactive decisions. What do you think as far as that's concerned? Sirianni begins the season with a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah, and listen, I think rightfully so, because we saw what this offense has looked, all the chatter with A.J. Brown and the quarterback Jalen Hurts, and this offense just hasn't, from their Super Bowl year to last year, it was just such a fall off from the offensive line, the lack of imagination, scheme-wise, and it just seemed like every year they bringing in a new offensive coordinator.
Right.
That is not sustainable as an organization. If they flounder next year in Philadelphia, of all places, there will be a lot of chat of okay, we've changed coordinators. The next position that's going to get changed is going to be the head coach position.
What do you think, Dominique?
Yeah, I think one of the jobs of the head coach is to be able to provide that stability. Like, we know that there's going to be some fluctuation in offense and defense from year to year, but they look entirely different depending on who the offensive coordinator is. If that's the case and you have an offensive-minded head coach, it's hard to defend keeping him there if we can't even trust you to keep the ship steady when we're changing offensive coordinators, because that's going to happen often. If we're going to be a good, successful team, we're going to lose our coordinators. The head coach is supposed to be able, especially if you have an offensive history, supposed to be able to stabilize that to some degree.
Yes, I think it's obviously a famously critical and impatient fan base in Philadelphia, and I think that's fair to say. And, Sirianni's a guy that anytime it has kind of turned ugly, has faced some scrutiny, he's been able to pull out of it. That's why I say if the Eagles have a bad year, I think this is a conversation we have. It's just the Eagles don't tend to have bad years. But the question is, does the offense get up and running again? If it doesn't, I think the finger gets pointed there.
I think up and running is the key point. I mean,
Yes.
if you were to sort of put a number to their offense 2 years ago, it would be the number 26, right?
Yes.
It would be Saquon Barkley's number. And we just watched all those clips, and there were none of those plays last year. And I don't care who was coaching it. That was the biggest difference between the Super Bowl season and this one that fell short. Let me give you 3 things you need to know if you're a sport.
He was listed on their injury report multiple times last week as limited with a shoulder injury. I believe he injured it during the AFC Championship game in a play in the third quarter that you're about to see where he dives for a first down, or actually past the first down, lands on his right shoulder. Anyway, missed practice Friday because he was sick. So now they are in San Francisco. They'll practice at Stanford University this week. There will be people watching practice. There are pool reporters that are allowed to watch practice during Super Bowl week. So we will actually have a sense, to a greater extent than we get during the regular season, how many practice reps he takes. And so, I don't get the sense this is something that's going to keep him from playing in the Super Bowl, but it could be something that limits him, and I would advise people to pay attention to the practice reports this week for that reason.
I'll remind everyone we were having that conversation about Sam Darnold before each of their playoff games. The oblique, of course he'll play, but will he be affected? He was not, obviously, so certainly not in that Rams game, and then we'll see if Maye is affected by this. And look, there's always a lot at stake in the Super Bowl. That feels like almost a ridiculously obvious statement. But, Dominique, in the case of the quarterback, especially one this young, who came in this highly touted and played as well this year as he did, there's a special lot in store for him.
Yeah, the trajectory of his career, I think, is going to be altered by the way that this game pans out. If he plays poorly, I think we all forgive him and we say he's one of these young quarterbacks in the crop with Caleb and Jaden Daniels that's getting better and has a chance to take over the league eventually. If he plays well in this game, like really well in this game, he jumps up to the conversation, I think, where he's competing with Allen and Burrow and Mahomes to be the best quarterback in football. I think it's going to take more than this game. But these type of situations, this is what makes and breaks your reputation, and I think you can build off of it. So given that he's had a rough stretch in the playoffs so far, all that goes away if he plays well against this great defense in the biggest game of the season.
Yeah,
go ahead, Nick.
No, I mean, listen, he has a rough stretch because you just look at the defenses that he's played in the postseason, between the Chargers and the Texans and the Broncos, and now you're facing, the Seattle Seahawks. Again, to Dominique's point, he goes out and have a really great Super Bowl against that defense. I think it elevates him up to another level. But I think the other point that I like to make is coaching matters. Coaching matters in the National Football League for not only Drake Maye, but for both of these guys. We've seen the trajectory of Sam Darnold and what happened to his career, getting to the right spot. And obviously with Drake Maye, last year the Patriots were 4-13, entering Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels. All of a sudden now he's in contention for MVP and has a chance to win a Super Bowl.
Fair or not, the way we judge quarterbacks and head coaches in the NFL is largely the result of this game Sunday. So no matter what happens, if Drake Maye and the Patriots win this game Sunday, that's in the bank. So, if he wins another one 5 years from now, we talk about he's a multiple Super Bowl winner. That's a huge, huge accomplishment for a quarterback that elevates you into conversations that we don't talk about with 23-year-olds. So that's the effect of this. If he wins, if he doesn't win it, Dan Marino went his second year, didn't win it, never went back. That's one of the potential outcomes. But if he does, that gives him a pretty good head start if he's about to have, let's say hypothetically, he's about to have a Hall of Fame career. We don't know, but he seems to have that kind of talent. That gives him a head start on those conversations that we have about him in the middle and latter part of his career. When we assess quarterbacks relative to each other historically, the Super Bowl matters.
Sometimes you need a lot of things to hit right? Like the perfect storm of circumstances.
Yes.
And one that I think is You brought it up earlier today, and we kind of had a laugh about it. But the reality is, Josh McDaniels